day to you. This is Todd. I'm just a regular dude walking in the Word. Today, I thought I'd bring you in front of this kayak that I'm working on. We're modifying it a bit. I'm modifying it a bit. Actually made the opening a little bigger here. It's a kayak we got for dirt cheap, and we used it for quite a while. And then I decided to make some modifications to it. If you look closely here, you can see. See this? Maybe not, but it's a glass bottom right there. So put a little glass bottom boat in there, or glass, so you can see your fish going underneath you. And so that's the plan for this boat. Today, as you know, I'm just a regular dude walking in the Word. We're going to be reading from Mark 6:45 to 56. And it's, if you have your Bibles, it's where Jesus is walking on the water. And so I thought I'd bring this out here because this boat, I wouldn't want to take it out very far. I like to take it out into the bay, and I might go out into the Gulf a little bit, but I'm not going to go 7 miles out into the Gulf with this. So anyway, let's read. It's Mark 6:45 to 56. It says this: Immediately Jesus made his disciples get on the boat, into a boat, and go ahead of him to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up onto the mountainside to pray. Late that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost, and they cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Let me stop you there for a moment. Jesus, what had happened here is, we had talked about Jesus yesterday had fed the 5,000 men, okay? And then he needs a little break here, so he sends his disciples on ahead, and he goes up into the mountainside to pray, okay? So the Sea of Galilee had mountains all around it, or, you know, like big hills all around it. And he went up in there to pray, okay? Now, you're wondering, gee, I wonder how big the Sea of Galilee is. I know you're wondering that. I'm wondering that. Well, let me see in my boat here what I have. It's always handy to have your Haley's Bible Handbook in your kayak or wherever you want. So let's see. Let me see here. Oh, here it talks about the Sea of Galilee. And it says the Sea of Galilee was 13 miles long and 7 miles wide, 680 feet below sea level. Okay, so that's, I believe it's one of the lowest lakes in the world, if not the lowest lake in the world. And it was surrounded by hills averaging 300 feet in height. Okay, so Jesus was probably up on one of those hills. The coast averaging about a half mile in width, except on the northwest where the plain of Gennesaret was. Okay, so anyway, this lake is about 13 miles long and about 7 feet wide. So it's always good to have your Haley's Bible Handbook or another handbook when you're unsure of what's being talked about. So, like around here, there's not a lake that size. The closest thing would be like Okeechobee, which Okeechobee is larger than that. But like you go out to Sarasota Bay, it's not that large. And because it had the hills and mountains surrounding it like that, it was easy for storms to come up pretty quick, okay, and get rough. So sometimes if you're out in Sarasota in the afternoon in your kayak, a storm can come up pretty quick, but you can see it coming in the distance. I better get to shore because the storm's coming. So anyway, I want you to see in this passage, though, a lot of times we look at this passage and we think, oh, there's just one miracle of Jesus walking on the water. There's actually a whole bunch of miracles here that you're going to see. So the first thing is, late that night, he sent the disciples away, and then he looked out and he saw them. So the first miracle is Jesus saw them out in the middle of the lake. Okay, I'm going to have a hard time seen out in the middle of the lake, and this was like the New King James says the third watch of the night, and then NIV says before dawn. So it's dark. It's before daylight. So Jesus is up. He's been praying all night, and the disciples have been trying to row across the lake all night. All right, and he sees them straining at the oars. So that's the first thing. He sees through the dark and sees these guys out in the middle of the lake straining at the oars. That's the first miracle. All right, so let's keep reading here. And he went out to them, and notice if in verse 49, but they saw him walking on the lake. They thought he was a ghost, and they cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Okay, that's the second miracle. Jesus is out there walking on the water. All right. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. All right. The third miracle right there is he climbed into the boat with them, and then the wind died down. The miracle is not him climbing into the boat, even though he got there, walking on water. That's the second miracle. But the third miracle is the wind immediately died down. Okay. This is the second time we read in Mark where he took control over the storms. The first time he was sleeping in the boat. This time he walks out to the boat, and he gets in the boat, and the winds calmed down. All right, then he climbed into verse 51, into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves, and their hearts were hardened. Verse 53, when they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. All right. In other translations, it says immediately they got to the other side. So the fourth miracle was Jesus quickly got them to the other side. They'd been rowing all night and got halfway across, but as soon as Jesus gets in the boat, they get to the other side. Okay. Verse 54. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout the whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. All right, so he gets there. Now he's healing people, okay? Miracles keep on happening. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or the countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. You remember touching the edge of the cloak. That's what, back the chapter before, the woman with the issue of blood, she had done that. She had touched the edge of the cloak. So, the thing is, what I want you to see from this whole thing is this, that as Jesus went out into the boat, there was a whole lot of miracles that happened just beyond him walking on the water, okay? All kinds of stuff where the amazing thing was he saw out into the water at night, which I can't see across anything at night. He saw out into the water at night and saw the disciples were straining at the oars to get to where they were going, okay? And then he saw that. So all those different miracles that took place. So what I would like us to remember today is Jesus provides miracles all the times, and we don't even realize some of those miracles. Sometimes what I do is, because I'm quick to forget about miracles that happen in my life, what I like to do is when something happens in my life, I have a notebook and I write that stuff down, because it's oftentimes I'll forget about it, and then when I'm in trouble, a year later, I'm like, God, you never seem to help me. I can go back and look at the book and I can see I have documented, God helped me this time. He provided this for me at this time. All these miracles he's provided for me. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Look at the miracles God has provided for you and even write them down. Lord's blessing to you. Thanks for watching, and we will continue our journey through the book of Mark tomorrow. See ya.